Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, it's time to talk about a subject that you may or may not be aware of here. So we're going to go straight into the 1908 newspapers and see what we can figure on out here. Let me go ahead and change this over to the screen view, and here we have it. You can see the background here has changed a little bit as I've been upgrading my computer to the way that I want it to be. So this is one of those classified pages in the Philadelphia Inquirer, May 2nd, 1908. If you wonder where it is, I get these screenshots from for the thumbnail. This is the place that it comes from. You can see all the amusements that Barnum and Bailey, greatest show on earth, in for the week. They have all sorts of stuff here. The Land of Dollars. I don't know what else we have. Vaudeville, The Game Musician, Miss Hook of Holland, all sorts of shows I've never heard of. Some that we know about, Il Trovatore, which is, I assume, an opera, and German theater, and they have more Italian theater and all sorts of stuff. Casino, not quite sure what's going on. Looks like it's a little bit of crazy stuff happening, huh? Right underneath dancing and right above steamboats, that's where we have baseball. Baseball today, so we know about this one at Columbia Ballpark on 30th and Oxford Streets in Philadelphia. That was the game that we just saw this morning where the Red Sox took on the Athletics, and Philadelphia won for us. I'm not sure exactly what happened in real life. That game in real life was called at 3:30 p.m. I've mentioned this time and time again, but when you're looking at baseball, especially back in this era, you have to remember that these games tended to start around 3:30 or 4 o'clock, sometimes even later than that. I've seen some pretty late starting times. We tend to ignore that, even though it's quite significant. It explains a lot about why hitting was so bad back then, right? Saturday game called at 3 o'clock. So even on Saturday, they weren't calling the game that early. Somebody somewhere's got to do some research on some of these morning games to see how things were different as, you know, the shadows and so on were different. This is the big one right here, though. Baseball today, Union League Park, 62nd and Walnut Streets, Philadelphia versus Elizabeth. Game called at 3:30 p.m. Admission again 25 cents. So what in the world is that? Well, that's the Union League, right? You ever hear of the Union Professional League? I hadn't before I started this prospect, and I consider myself to be like actually somewhat knowledgeable about baseball history. Union League was founded by this guy called Alfred Lawson, about whom I know very, very little. He was English-born professional baseball player. We'll look into him really quickly. He briefly pitched apparently for the Boston Braves and the old Philadelphia Alleghenies in the National League. And he had a lot of success in the aviation business. He founded this league as an outlaw baseball league before the 1907 series, originally called the Atlantic League, which was the name of minor league at the time, I believe. He took a bunch of Atlantic leagues with him when he made the Union Professional League, and he had teams in Philadelphia, New York, Elizabeth, New Jersey, Paterson, Brooklyn, Washington, D.C., Wilmington, Reading, and Baltimore. So you can see this is all basically up in the sort of mid-Atlantic region, all up to the sort of New York, New Jersey area. I mean, just with that one team in... I was going to say, no, there is nothing up in Massachusetts. So, I mean, you know, it's really a very, very focused type league. No salary cap, no multi-year contracts, and no reserve clause. But his intent was to withhold a large amount of each player's weekly salary until the end of the season, which didn't really work that well. And they had a whole bunch of problems. The biggest problem was the rain. Now, when you go through the newspapers in 1908, you see that the rain is a big problem, right? Washington had 9 rainouts in May. That's a problem if you got a new league because, I mean, you have to actually have like some money flowing. It's hard to get money flow if you're not playing games, and you're not playing games because it keeps raining, right? Additionally, there was no attraction of star players from the established leagues, which causes the league to fold in June. The folding of the league is going to come really, really soon. We're going to see that pretty soon as we go through the replay, right? Well, we haven't quite gotten to it yet. Take a quick look at him. I mean, he had 1 start for Boston and 2 for Pittsburgh in the 1890 season. That was it. He had a minor league playing career. I mean, this guy was not particularly notable for anything at all. He just sort of, you know, had this crazy idea for the Union Professional League that just didn't work. But interestingly enough, when you start looking through the newspapers of some of these cities, you will find information out about the Union League. So you can see here, for example, Athletics win, too cold for Phillies, Unions lose. So the Athletics won. This is not the game that we saw, but the game before. This was also played at Philadelphia, and they beat Boston, 8-4. Let's take a quick look here. See, yeah, the Phillies, where are the National League Phillies? Let's see if we can find them. Here we go. Phillies game called off. Too cold in New York to meet the Giants. right? Owing to the cold weather, the sun was shining brightly at 4 o'clock. On account of the heavy wind and cold, managers Murray and McGraw did not care to take a chance of injuring their twirlers' arms and called the contest off. That would have probably been pretty controversial back in those days. I mean, we're talking May 2nd. I mean, it's not like we're in the middle of December, right? But here we go. Elizabeth played against Philadelphia, and you can see the Union League team was also called the Phillies because they're from Philadelphia. They played in a frosty game, too cold for baseball, and the players were hampered in their work because of the necessity of wearing their coats and sweaters. And then there was that same high wind, and so it was probably a bad idea to actually go through with playing this game. It'd be interesting to see if we could find anything else more about this. Elizabeth won 8-6. In fact, I wonder, now I hopefully won't bore you too much as I take a look here. Yeah, see, there's nothing from Elizabeth, New Jersey. I'm just wondering, though, and I'm curious as to what the weather was actually like that day. So we'll go take a quick look here at the Evening World. Will probably give us an idea of what it was like on May 1st, 1908. Now, I don't think that the Evening World had any sort of coverage of the New York team, right? Oh, there was a team in Brooklyn. See, that's the problem. There was not a team in New York City. I mean, it's sort of like a collection of like almost major league cities with a couple of major league cities thrown in, but this wasn't really a very, very serious attempt at putting together a major league. You can see they have coverage of the Giants-Phillies game, but nothing beyond that. What we really want to see here, though, is what the weather says. Sometimes we can find this, sometimes we can't. So I'm going to take a real quick look. You can tell this is a real professional YouTube channel, because we have everything planned out ahead of time, don't we? We'll take a quick look through these old pages and see if there's much that we can find, and I'm certain that you'll be laughing at these old advertisements as we sort of flip through everything. Not really seeing very much, though. So sometimes you do get it, sometimes you don't. There is another place, of course, where we can look. You have to remember that when you're looking at what the weather forecast is, you want to look at that day itself and not at the day after. So it can be a little bit difficult to, I get this, if you're going to go through and you're going to try to like recreate what the weather originally was like and all of this stuff. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that will come in your way and will make it a little bit difficult. But I would say that if you have a little bit of patience and if you're interested enough in this, you can at least make some sort of progress. It's interesting to see how large this paper was, 18 pages, but I haven't been able to find anything that looks quite like the weather. The other place that we can look, of course, is the Sun, which, as I've said before, was for 1908 probably the premier newspaper in New York, not the New York Times. If I were living in New York, I would probably have been subscribed to the Sun, not to the New York Times, just because of the overall quality of articles. We'll take a quick look over here, too. Here we go, the weather. I knew that you're going to have something here. Storm, blah, blah, blah. Temperature yesterday. Oh, so here you can't get what the temperature was the day before. East New York, fair and southern rain or snow in northern portion today. Much colder in eastern and southern portions with high west and northeast winds. And in western New York, they had snow in the forecast. That's pretty interesting. Temperature was actually not really that cold when you look at the 62, 65, 63, and then down in the 50s that evening. That tells me that if we look over to the next page, and or next day, and it's probably also on page 3, we can probably find what the weather was. And yeah, here you go. This is the reason why this game was postponed, right? I mean, this isn't like the worst weather of all time, right? But 46 degrees, 48 degrees, 49 degrees. You can see the reason why they called it off. And there was probably quite a bit of wind. Let's see if we can see anything in here about... Yeah, it was in the lake regions and so on. In this city, the day was fair and cooler, wind brisk to high westerly, average humidity 52%. And they didn't give you the actual wind readings. But yeah, pretty interesting stuff, right? And you can see that it did kind of warm up a little bit that evening. 50 degrees is not too cold for baseball, but 46, if you had a big wind chill, would have been too cold. So there you go. At any rate, this is getting a little bit off the topic, but there you have it for the Union Professional League. And I'm actually curious, if we went over to Brooklyn and looked at, so the paper we usually will look at here is the Brooklyn Daily Eagle, and took a look at that for this day in May 2nd. And I'm just going to sort of throw one out there. See, it's probably going to be right about here. this is the way that we look through our newspapers, and then we do a little bit of flipping through. It's sort of like flipping through your television channels, right? For those of you who remember what this was like back when we used to use televisions. Yeah, they're not going to have it this early on, so I went the wrong way. Let's see if we can find it here really quick. Here we go. That's right. They used to have the double page. Now I remember. The big question is, do they have any sort of Union League coverage? Now, they did have a little bit here because you can see that they did have the Union League standings. Elizabeth was 5-0 by that point in time. And let's see if there's any other information in here. So there's the Superbas game. And what we're looking for is, was there even a Union League game? I think that there was here. Yeah, this is it right here. So the Brooklyn Union Leaguers returned home, blah, blah, blah. And you'll see that there's no real nickname for any of these teams. They were just called the Union Leaguers, I'm assuming, in every single city. They lost to Patterson 8-4. Game played in 2 hours, 20 minutes, attendance 300. That's why your league folded, my friend. It's a pretty bad attendance. And here's more about the cold weather. The cold weather had the players shivering. The Union League is probably not remembered in part because I think everybody's memories froze to death. And so there you have it. The Union League, probably the coldest major league of all time. And that's a little bit that we have about it. So there you are. There's your little bit into the Union League. At some point in time, I'm going to write about this. I'll do some actual research and see what I can come up with. But pretty interesting stuff to read about if you ask me. And we'll leave it at that. So I will talk with you again tomorrow. Hope you have a good one. Talk to you then. Bye.